Hello and welcome to episode 60 of the Law Firm Marketing Mastery Podcast. I am your host, as always, Christopher Small, and I am really excited for this week's podcast. This is switching up a little bit. Most of the time it's just me talking, but this week I am happy to welcome Jacob Sapochnick to the podcast. He is a lawyer, like probably most of us listening to this podcast, and he has done very well for himself. He's an immigration attorney in San Diego, and you'll hear more about this later. But he has been able to do what I hope all of us can do at some point, and that is really start and build a successful law firm in a relatively short amount of time with a lot of hard work and sound business fundamentals. So that's that. I usually start these off by kind of telling you a little bit about what's going on with me and the firm and things like that. And let's see, we are over a week. I've got the new baby. That's a big thing for me. I've been home all week. It's been really great. The firm has still been doing well. I've been working from home. Maybe I'll post a picture of my little home office that I created. It's actually something that's in a closet, but I really like it because it allows me to focus, eliminates distraction, and makes it really easy for me to get work done in between feedings and walking the dog and taking care of my wife while she recovers, from labor and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, been a good week, a little tired, but I'm really excited again to bring you this interview. So here we go. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Let's just do audio, no video. All right,
Okay.
that's easier.
Perfect.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask you something, if you were okay with it. If you're not, then I won't do it. But I've got a membership site that I do, and
Okay.
what I was thinking about doing was doing like the first half of the interview in that with kind of talking about your Enchanting Lawyer website and what you do with that, giving your contact information, and then talking a little bit more in the second half of the interview about the Facebook stuff, and then kind of holding the Facebook, that second half for like my members. Is that, are you comfortable with that? Are you okay with that or not?
Yeah, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure because I didn't want to, just want to be upfront with everything and all that stuff.
What you can do is in the first part, just kind of talk about what I do and just give it a general idea as to what I did in my marketing, and then in the second part,
Right.
go into more detail.
So and to give you an idea, I've got some notes set up. What I really like to talk about with people is the process of the process of kind of starting and building your firm, and what kind of experiences you went through with that. What really helped you, what kind of setbacks you had. So typically I will go through that, and then definitely we'll talk as much as you want about your kind of marketing stuff before we cut the public part of the interview off. Is that all right?
Okay. No
Is that
problem.
cool?
Sure. Absolutely. Now, where are you located?
I'm in Seattle.
You're in Seattle. Okay.
Yep.
So we're
Yep.
in the West Coast.
Yep. West Coast.
Very good. And
That's how
then
we do it.
you're a practicing attorney, and then you do this the marketing thing kind of parallel, right?
Yeah. So here, I'll tell you kind of my story real quick before we get started. So I started my firm in 2009. We do criminal defense, personal injury. And when I was starting my firm, I was looking for the kind of resources that we both have created now,
Right.
with our kind of like
Sure.
our marketing stuff. And there wasn't anything out there. So what I decided to do kind of for posterity and to help other people out was I started a blog at the very, very beginning of my experience, kind of documenting everything that I've done forever. So
Right.
I started way before I even opened my firm, just with what I was doing, and what kind of struggles I was having, what's been working, what hasn't, and it's kind of evolved into this Law Firm Marketing Mastery website that I have now. So that's where it's at.
And so tell me about the membership part of it.
Yeah.
So tell me.
So the membership part of it is there are a couple of different levels, but the basic level essentially gets the members a weekly course or something. Like, and the way that I'm doing it is I'm starting
sort of at the very beginning. So I'm starting with like business foundations, mindset, moving into all of the basics for starting your firm, picking a name, business formation, logo, business cards, office space, then moving into marketing, so social media, networking, direct mail, all those different things, and basically really kind of going in depth, step by step on how I do it so that other people can do it, because we kind of tend to talk in broad strokes, like on these podcasts and even on our websites. It's hard to really dive deep into, you do this first, then you do this second, then you do this third. So a lot of what I'm doing with that is taking the time to deep dive into stuff, and that's why I have people pay for it, because it takes me a lot more work,
Sure.
than just doing a.
But you do it like
podcast.
one-on-one with them, or it's like a webinar? What is the format?
It's videos mostly.
So it's
videos,
pre-recorded already.
Pre-record. Yep. So the basic level is all pre-recorded. So each week I release a new module basically, and there's a gold member, like a second tier, which includes one live webinar per month, and then there's a super upper tier, which is like a mastermind group with only 5 people, and that's a weekly phone call, really kind of dedicated to helping them grow their practices. So
all 5 people are on the call together.
correct. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So yep, it's your typical mastermind format where each person gets like 10 minutes and they say what their problem is, and we all try to help them solve their problem, get action steps for the next week, and then just kind of continuously do that to help push people forward. So it's cool. It's
Very
fun.
good. And most of these people are local?
No, they're from everywhere. Most of them are from the United States.
Yeah,
I don't think I have.
From the.
Yep.
They're not necessarily from Seattle, from Washington State.
No, they're from all over the country.
Right.
All over the country. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Yeah.
Very good.
So, okay. Are you ready?
Yeah. That was second.
Okay.
I just got a message from my assistant. She wants to bring me water here.
All right.
Let me just wait for her 1 second. I don't want to interrupt the recording.
No problem.
I'm going to tell her 1 second. Yeah, we have a lot of attorneys from the West Coast. A lot of these West Coast are, it looks like they're a lot proactive about marketing. But now, we're starting to see a lot of them from the kind of middle.
Oh yeah.
Once I hear this. Thanks, Beth.
Yeah.
1 second.
It was only $2.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
We'll
Do you say your last name Sapochnick?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, Sapochnick is good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sapochnick?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, you ready to go?
Yeah, good.
All right. Today I am pleased to be here with Jacob Sapochnick. He is the founder and owner of the law offices of Jacob J. Sapochnick, an immigration law firm in San Diego, California. He is known also as the Enchanting Lawyer in law firm marketing circles, and his law firm's Facebook page, as of this recording, has 111,346 likes. Yes, over 110,000 likes on his Facebook page. And he is here today to talk to us about starting and running a successful law firm. Good afternoon, Jacob.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you can make it. And before we really dive into anything, I was Facebook stalking you a little bit, and I noticed that on your Enchanting Lawyer page, you have a picture with Pat Flynn, right?
Right.
What happened? Tell me the story about that. Cause I'm a big, I love business and I love marketing. And so, I follow a lot of those guys too. And, I just was curious about that picture. So what's the story behind that?
So, as you know, he's also, I'm in San Diego, and he's also local here. So
That's right.
We had a recent conference in March, the social media marketing world, and he was there, and we connected before online. We never actually met in person, so it was a good opportunity just to kind of reach out, say hi, and we know some of the same people like Cliff Ravenscraft, and John Lee Duma. They all, I mean, John and Pat are here, but Cliff comes to the conferences, so it was a good way to connect. And he's a really interesting guy, as you mentioned. He firstly he's very humble, and he managed to actually reach a lot of success by showing people how he actually does it. And yeah, he's definitely an inspiration to a lot of people online who trying to do what he's doing, marketing, blogging, and podcasting.
Right. So and I gotta ask this next question, but how did you I guess create a relationship with him and like Cliff Ravenscraft and those guys, and this for me is kind of a networking question, right? Because I'm always interested in how people reach out and meet people. What do you do for those kind of things?
So, for example, if you look at I use the same approach to my podcast. If you look at the podcast, we look at the guests that we had. Or for just this week, we had Lee Steinberg, who is the leading sport agent, and he's also the real Jerry Maguire. He's a huge celebrity over there. One of the things that I do is we try to connect with them through people that know them, and I try always to see like who do I know and what relationship I have with existing people, and we always try to give value. So I knew some people in Lee Steinberg's case. I was involved in a program that he sponsored years back, and I reached out to some of these people that were involved in it and showed them what I'm doing right now, and they made a connection. With people like Cliff and Pat and John, it's key to be part of their, I took some of their courses, I comment online on some of the things that they do, and over time, they remember you. And so when you actually meet with them in person, it makes it a much easier connection to continue it. And it's just kind of building the network. Always sharing, you share links, you share articles, and sometimes they won't respond, but when they do, that at least they remember you. And I think it's a good way to do it, building a network.
Right. Perfect. I agree 100%. And let's just get this out of the way real quick too. You have a podcast, which I am a subscriber of, actually.
Thank you.
And it's called the Enchanting Lawyer podcast. Is that right?
Right.
It's on iTunes. You can go to Stitcher?
Yeah, it's both on iTunes and Stitcher. You can find it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yep. And you can go to what? enchantinglawyer.com?
So that you can search for the iTunes in the iTunes store podcasts, or you just go to enchantinglawyer.com, and we have a podcast section there, so you can listen to it actually directly from the website. But most people like to listen to it in the car or they run or jog. Just download the shows to your iPod.
Yep.
So it's hard to keep the consistency always, but as you know, you have a podcast too. It's great to get the feedback from the people who listen to it, and kind of gives you motivation to keep doing it.
It is, definitely. We're gonna get into kind of that push to continue to create content and get out there in a little bit. But before, all right. So enough with the Pat Flynn stuff. I want to go kind of back to the beginning of your journey as a law firm owner, right? Has it always been your dream to own a law firm?
Well, I started my firm in 2004. It's actually our 10-year anniversary in late June. It's going to be
nice
this year.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So I think before I started the firm, I was working for a couple of years for another firm, bigger firm, and I'm really happy that I did that, because that firm was there's a lot of things that happened there that were not right. I didn't like the way they were dealing with the clients. I didn't like the way they were reaching out, doing their marketing. But I felt that I could always do it. I felt that I could do it better. But if I didn't learn it or didn't see how things are done in a different firm, I would never maybe have the inspiration to set up my own firm. But I always wanted to do things my way. And so when I was able to do it, and I started it just with myself in a small office, I figured that I have a dream as far as how I want to see it run, how I want to see clients come to me, and the kind of service that I wanted to provide to these people. So, back in 2004, Facebook wasn't as dominant as today, but blogging was just kind of starting to take off, and I started my first blog in 2005, which was really the foundation for my online system.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way. I worked at a couple of places, and I always thought, I could do this so much better if I was in charge. Like the experience for the clients could be so much better. The work could be so much better. Things could run so much smoother. And kind of once that seed got planted in my mind, there was no getting around it. You know, I sounds like you kind of had the same experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think once you start doing it and you have a vision and a plan, it's very difficult to go back. I mean, especially after you do it for 6 months, there's no way you can go back to work for a firm because you already feel the opportunities and the possibilities out there. It's just impossible to go back to work somewhere else. And if you do happen to go back to work for a firm, I think it's a very miserable experience because you know you're doing it because you have no other choice.
Yep, I agree with you 100%. And the freedom that you get, you know, it's a lot of hard work when you open your firm, but there's even though you're working hard and you may be working more hours maybe than you even would at a law firm, it's still, you know, you're working for yourself, you know, and you're building every hour that you put in, you're going to get a return on that investment, you know, 10, 100 times over. And that you don't really ever get to experience that in a normal job.
Right.
You know? So I love that feeling. It's really hard to explain, I think, to people that aren't in it. But you're right. Once you get in it, I think if you've done it for 6 months, it's really hard to go back.
Right.
You know, I agree with that. Okay, so let's see. I want to talk. So I listened to some of your other interviews out there, and you mentioned this earlier, but you were working for a bigger immigration law firm before you opened your firm, right?
Right.
Was that and to even back up a little bit farther, you went to law school overseas.
Correct.
Right?
So you know you can hear from my accent that I'm not a local guy. I'm actually Israeli. So I came.
Okay.
You know, I went to law school in England, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to kind of experience education overseas. Just kind of broaden my mind. I served in the Israeli Air Force for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, and I wanted to kind of get away from Israel just to kind of clear my mind. And I happened to, when I was traveling in Europe, I met a couple of guys who were studying over there. It was the mid-'90s back then, and I felt that, you know, I could live there. It was an interesting place, and the legal system there was very traditional. You know, England is kind of the core. We have the same common law like in the U.S.
Right.
And so I spent about three years in England, and then as the .com was rising, I wanted to get into IP law, and so that's why I moved to California, where most of the companies were there, and I wanted to get into that area of law. And I did my LLM in San Diego it was about late 99, which brought me into to the U.S.
And then so this firm, were you working for them while you were still pursuing your LLM?
Right. So the firm that I was working at, I started working there as an intern actually when I was in law school, and they were it was a multi-practice firm. So they had an immigration division, they had a estate planning, and they had a business, general business. And so that's why I kind of got into immigration, and I realized that there could be an area where I have an interest because, you know, the diversity of the clients, and it was a federal practice where you can do it in all 50 states,
right,
which kind of makes it much more interesting. And so yeah, that was the beginning. I started as an intern, and they helped me get my visa to stay in the U.S. and I've been with them almost I believe almost 3 years.
Okay. And were you? I think did you start out working for them for free for no money?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I was you know, in the beginning I was an intern.
Right.
And you know, bear in mind that back then the legal market wasn't as bad as it is now.
Right.
We're talking about 99, where you know, some attorneys just out of law school making more than 150,000 in many cities in the U.S. That was very common. It was a prosperity period. You know,
Right.
startups are rising. They need legal services, and so getting a job wasn't that hard. So working for free for me, I just wanted to get in the door so I can get myself before a partner who's going to say, you know what, we're going to hire this guy at some point. And I
Right.
felt that doing an internship was probably the best way to do it. And even today, I think an internship is the best way to get in the door.
Right. I just think that's such a, you know, because there are a lot of new lawyers that listen to this podcast. There are a lot of law school students that listen to this podcast, and I think it's important to kind of stress that sometimes it's okay to put a little work in for free to either get the experience that you want, or like you said, to to do two things at once, to get your foot in the door too, and kind of show people what you can do. You know, and I think that's important, especially in today's market, right, where it's ultra competitive, and you may not have an opportunity to go and do something else. You may have to actually go put some work in and show people what you can do before they'll give you anything.
Right.
You know?
And in today's market, many attorneys are actually doing this for free, not just law students. You actually have attorneys who are willing to work for free just to be able to get in the door and be able to prove themselves because the market is so hard.
Right.
Just tough.
Just a question of how bad you want it, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's jump. I want to jump a little bit forward. So you leave this firm, you open your doors. Tell me the story about how you got your very first client with your firm.
Right. So, like I said, back then, the biggest problem that we have as attorneys, especially new attorneys who are starting out, is expenses, because you can run out of money very quickly if you're not kind of smart. And for me, I knew that marketing is important, because how people are going to know about my services. I mean, so Yellow Pages was out of the question. It was just too expensive. And even today, it's very expensive. So I started doing a lot of networking. I was just doing a lot of these events. I was showing up with my business cards. It was, $40 to get in, and you meet a lot of people. I meet in an immigration area. I was really going to the international chambers. I was going to a lot of these country-specific chambers. I was going to tech companies, mixers where those employers are looking to hire foreigners. And I was doing a lot of that legwork in the beginning. But of course...
I have a question for you real quick.
Sure.
So when you do these when you go to these networking events, did you have a plan of action? How did you approach these events? Would you go to them by yourself? What?
So I'll tell you. So my system has changed and evolved over the years. And so in the beginning, what happened is that I didn't realize it, but I was coming in there basically hungry for business, which was a mistake, because I wasn't efficient. I was there basically looking to close referral sources, to close cases, and nobody likes that. People want to meet people because they feel they can bring them value, and so it wasn't effective at all. And so what I was doing is I was going in there. I didn't spend time listening to the people I was talking to. I just wanted to see who could be a potential referral source or a potential client, and I could see that. And so, and over the years, what I've done is when I was going to networking events, I was going with a pure intention to, first of all, get myself known in the crowd. Doesn't matter what I'm going to get there, just get myself known, provide value, just be kind of nice and kind and informative. Now, once you do that and start kind of moving around the crowd, but not giving them the presumption that I'm there just for a purpose. And as you do that more, you become more efficient at that, and you get much better leads. But the problem with networking events is that you can't do it all the time, because your time is valuable, and you cannot just rely on that to get business. So I realized that I have to find a better way, and of course the web was the next step. I started, I set up my first blog in 2005, and I focused on getting that content on the blog early enough, not realizing what's going to happen with that, because I really had no other choice. That's the only thing I could do.
Right. So I know I kind of pulled you on a tangent, but do you recall the very, very first client that you ever had?
Absolutely.
Tell me about it.
Absolutely.
Tell me about
that. So, the very first client that I had was actually a client that I met at a function. It wasn't a networking event. It was actually a fundraiser, and I was sitting there, and it was a table, 12 people, and the person was sitting next to me, and he was a recruiter, and I told him I just opened my firm, and he said, you know what, I need an immigration attorney. We just found this guy from Canada. We need to get him over here on a visa. I'm going to call you on Monday. And he did. He called me on Monday, and we processed 2 visas for his people. So that was my first client.
Awesome.
And I'll never forget that.
Yep, I'll never forget mine either, man. It's a great feeling, right?
Absolutely.
Somebody wants you, so
Right.
That's awesome. All right. So I want to talk a little bit more about your blog, okay?
Right.
Because I went and I did a little digging. I went and looked back at the Visa Lawyer blog, is the blog that I'm talking about, and is visalawyer.blog.com.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In case people want to go and check it out.
Sure.
But I went back into the archives because I wanted to see what your content creation, kind of your amount of content creation was like, and it looks like you've been posting. I didn't go all the way up to today, but starting in 2007, it looked like you were doing probably 2 or 3 articles a week.
Right.
Does that sound right?
Correct.
Does that sound right?
Correct.
All right. So tell me a little bit about that, just in general. Like, what? I guess here's my first question. How do you find the content to do 2 or 3 times a week?
I'll tell you. So basically, this blog is kind of the latest version, late 2006 when we relaunched Visa Lawyer blog. Before that, we had another blog that was another mistake that I made, that I published my blog not on my own domain. So it was on one of those. I think it was a Blogger or
like a blogspot.com blog, right?
And that was the one that I released in 2005. I had to close it, unfortunately, because I just we couldn't move everything to my own domain. It was hurting SEO. So we made a decision to completely scrape it. But again, if you're gonna do a blog, always use your own domain. And the other thing, never use a blog coming out of your own website. You can see a lot of attorneys right now that have let's say John Law Firm /blog. And they have a blog running from their firm website. That's the biggest mistake ever, because the blog must have its own SEO value, a separate domain completely. And people don't realize that, but it is very true today. So what I was doing in the beginning, because I realized that the blog is important, because we had results from the first year and a half before we relaunched this one in 2006, late 2006. We get a lot of reporters and news media finding our content. And so if you look at our website in the media section, you can see how many media hits I have since I opened my firm. We've been on ESPN, on NBC News, Fox, KPBS, NPR.
And I was going to ask you about that. They found you mostly from like maybe Googling a question and your blog pops up?
Absolutely. That's how it was in the beginning. And later on, when Twitter came out, I was using Twitter to work with a lot of these reporters, be kind of their source, and we got even more exposure as a result. But the blogging is really the key to get media, because if you're a young attorney and you don't have any if somebody's going to ask you, and I was getting that question all, because I look young even today, and I used to look young before, right? Because I was young. But even today, I get the question, and I'm 40 years old right now. But people are like, well, how old are you? And and how many years have you been doing that? And nobody's asking me that anymore. And that's because of a lot of the media validation, social proof. We can talk about that for hours. But if you have social proof, nobody's going to ask you anything. You can look 12. You have that credibility. Nobody's going to do it. And that's why the media was such an important tool. Because if you're a young attorney trying to break into the masses, how can you compete with somebody who's been doing this for 40 years, especially in an area like criminal law or family law, divorces, or those are personal injury. Those are very, very highly competitive areas, and experience matters. Yep. And so the media can definitely level the playing field here. And so that's what I was focusing on. I realized that reporters, they liked the blog, and I was doing more of it. And what I was doing is I was spending a day on a weekend to create the content for the whole week, and I would just schedule it. So on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would have my 3 posts every single week, because consistency is the key to blogging.
And did you write those? I'm sure at the beginning you probably wrote them all on your own.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was spending weekends, and I was killing myself to do that. But after the first year and a half, what I was doing as me and we'll talk about it later, because I hired my first associate after my second year in practice. I already had my first associate, because even though I couldn't afford that person, I did it because I was focusing on my marketing. And then I had, I was working with the associate to create a content. So we were creating some topics. I was doing the shell. They were editing it, but I was always involved in the writing, because you want to make sure that your input is always there. Never a good idea to outsource the writing completely, because you want to keep the voice of the firm always within.
Right, I agree. Yeah, because you outsource your content, you're kind of outsource your reputation if you're not careful.
Exactly.
You know, sometimes there've been
Yeah.
I've seen some horror stories.
Right. You
about
can
that
be
kind of stuff.
involved and have people
Right.
work with you, but never completely get rid of it.
Yeah, you always want to make sure you look at it before it goes out in some way, just so
Exactly.
you make sure it's not either wrong or
Yeah.
just badly written. You know, there's
Sure.
all kinds of things that can go on.
Sure.
Okay, all right. And so I guess the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to this blog, and it's because it's something that I hear a lot, is, you know, how did you overcome, you know, those time periods when you were like, man, you know, I don't want to write another blog post today. I'm tired of doing this. You know, how did you kind of overcome those hurdles?
So in my case, like I said, I was doing the blog post at one shot every weekend. I wasn't
Right.
doing it every day. So that one, because that's like, this is my time to write these things, and it's kind of like a chore.
Yep.
So it's a good way to say, you know what, I'm just doing it, and I'm going to go out and, go surfing or go run on the beach or whatever. If you do it during the week, it's very dangerous because you may get caught up with work and you're not going to do it. So that's why it's key to do it. Like, do it one day, like let's say on a weekend or before the weekend if you don't want to work on a weekend, and just kill those 3 posts. They don't have to be long. 500 words is enough to create value for the post.
Right.
So that shouldn't be a problem.
Yep. You just got to push through sometimes.
Right, exactly.
Or set yourself up for success like you did, where maybe you say, look, I'm going to take 3 hours or 4 hours. I'm going to write these blog posts, and then I'm going to reward myself with, you know, a surfing session or whatever it is you're into.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
But the key is you got to get it out, and consistency, right? For you has been a huge factor.
Correct.
Right? Awesome. Okay. I want to talk about, I'm always interested in kind of how you learn the business side, how people learn the business side of owning and running a law firm. So for you, was it just something that was it internal? I mean, I guess I don't know what your education was like before you went to law school, but has it been books, you know, coaching? How did you figure out kind of the business side, the marketing, the leadership, the management side of owning a law firm? How did you learn about that?
Well, I think that in my case, I always had a passion for business. So I always like to do different things, which are kind of entrepreneurial in nature. Even when I was in school, I had all these ideas about starting some little projects, and so I had that kind of in me. But of course, to get perfected, I always take some courses which are not legal connected. So, I could do something about leadership or management, and there are different courses out there. For example, we have, I was following Chris Brogan. He has a lot of interesting things that he does.
Definitely.
And, even some of the basic stuff that people like Brandon Bouchard were doing, just for the state of mind of it. But I think as far as the business side, I was always trying to test. And there's many failures that you do when you start a business. So I think the best way is actually to try it. It doesn't work, you try something different. Because even if you follow somebody else's course or lead, what works for them may not work for you. So you definitely want to take something. I mean, I always take something from any of these ideas, and then I try to implement it in my own system, which is going to work for us.
Right. Awesome. Okay. All right. So we're going to dive kind of into the Facebook stuff here in a minute. And I got to tell everybody that's listening that the second half of this interview is going to be just reserved for the members of Law Firm Confidential, my membership site. That's kind of something special for them. We're going to talk a little bit about Facebook before we get into the special side of it. But before we do that, I wanted to talk real briefly again about the Enchanting Lawyer website that you have, because I know why kind of I started everything that's involved or evolved into Law Firm Marketing Mastery. But how'd you kind of get into talking about the business of a law firm? What got you started there?
So over the years, especially in the last 2-3 years, as we did well on social, not just Facebook, but the different things we've done with YouTube and I'm getting a lot of inquiries from attorneys all over the world, actually, and they're trying to always asking me, well, how did you do this? How did you do that? And there was not too many resources about some of the things that we do, so I figured maybe I can start a blog that will talk about some of the ideas that I have and the things that I do that can be different, and have some of the other attorneys that can find value in that. And so that was kind of the idea for Enchanting Lawyer. The whole purpose of this blog is to, in addition to social media, which is a tool to get your information out there, our premise is that, most attorneys, a lot of attorneys are not, they're not pleasant. They're not helpful to their clients. They're just trying to get them as clients so they can pay them. And we say, well, why not be kind and nice and enchanting? And this is a way to differentiate yourself from the crowd. And by doing that, you actually get 10x more results because clients actually will trust you more and they want to do business with you. So that was kind of the premise behind the Enchanting Lawyer blog, and then kind of the community that we're trying to create here.
Right. And you have a weekly newsletter, right, too, that you send out?
Yeah, so what we do is we have every Monday we post a blog article that talks about whether it's social media or leadership, or like on Monday we had one about Mother's Day where I wrote about my mom and some of the things that I learned from her that I can apply in leadership. And on Wednesdays we release the blog post about the podcast.
Okay.
And so we have
All right.
twice a week we have and it comes out in a feed to all the members who subscribe to our blog.
Okay, cool. So, and again, I would encourage everyone to go look at that. As you've heard from Jacob, from me, the more resources that you can kind of put under your belt, the more information that you can take in, the more that you can learn, and the better your firm will be. So
Right.
I would encourage you to go check out his site and sign up for his feed. He's got some great stuff over there. That interview with Lee Steinberg was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Even I actually didn't know that he was the guy behind Jerry Maguire, but to hear him tell the story about them following him around,
Yeah.
and then he got sent, or they sent they sent Cuba Gooding Jr. with him to a game or
Right.
to the Super Bowl or something, and he's supposed to act like
Exactly.
he was gonna, like he did in the movie,
Right.
which I thought was pretty cool.
And then the Cameron, the director, he was following him for a long time just to get a feeling about the character.
Right.
So, but just the just spending time with this person even before I recorded the show, it was just is remarkable because he's a very interesting guy, and he went through a lot. But you definitely have a lot of things to learn from somebody like that. So, I'm trying to get some more people like that to the show. But I think that one of the things that we're doing right now, we have a lot of attorneys we're working with on kind of on coaching sessions just to teach them more about social and strategy, which is something that we're going to be developing more in the next this year, as well as as a course that we'll be releasing as well. So that'll be also available on our website for people to learn about.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Let's talk real quick about Facebook. I want to give all the listeners a little taste of your Facebook strategy before we kind of get into the behind the scenes. But what I'm curious to know about, because I think a lot of people that are listening here are beginners when it comes to social media. So I'm curious about the process of you going from about 0 to about 2,500 fans with your law firm page. What can you just tell me about that process of doing that?
Now remember that what we've done back then, which is probably late 2009, beginning 2010, mid 2010, it's very different than what's happening today because Facebook is changing the algorithm all the time. So a lot of the tools that have been working before are not efficient anymore today, which is another problem with Facebook because it's always changing. So what I've been doing in the beginning is basically we did a lot of marketing off Facebook to get people to Facebook, especially getting the first 1,000 fans. So we had we have a mailing list of about 6,000 people on our newsletter for the law firm. So we had a strong campaign to get a lot of these people on Facebook. We had Facebook address everywhere, business cards on our door, on our car bumpers, everywhere. Clients coming to the office, we encourage them to sign up, getting a discount on their fees. It was a lot of effort in the beginning, And then when ads started to be more effective on Facebook, we started using more ads to target more specific people. And as we get more fans, we started to engage with a more efficient content. But I think the key to starting with Facebook in the beginning is really to get the fans that are that know you. Because if the fans that know you are on the page, like your subscribers to your newsletter, your clients, they'll engage on the page. That was the key to our success in the beginning. People were actually commenting and sharing information because they knew us. Even if we had 800 fans at the beginning, they all knew who we are. So they were commenting, they were sharing, and that actually helped us when we started doing the advertising to get more engagement and to get to the first 2,500. A lot of the firms that I see on Facebook, they have less than 500 fans, but the pages are dead. There's no activity, there's no imagination, there's nothing, and so they get frustrated, and so it's just that's kind of a vicious circle because that's not working for me. So what's the point?
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that episode, that interview with Jacob. I know I did. I learned a lot of great stuff. And I've got a laundry list of things that I've got to do moving forward. One thing that I wanted to tell you before I kind of wrapped everything up was Jacob's contact information, because we forgot to get to that in the middle of the interview. If you want to reach out to him, you can email him at jacob@enchantinglawyer.com. He's on Twitter at Visa Lawyer Blog, and you can always just go to his sites. There'll be links to all this stuff in the show notes, including pretty much everything we talked about. So if you're interested in that, you can just go to lawfirmmarketingmastery.com/60 and find us there. And that's it. If you want to get the rest of the interview, which there's some really great stuff in there, you have to be a member of Law Firm Confidential, which is my membership site. Law Firm Confidential is really devoted to helping people start and build successful law firms. So hopefully that's you. Membership opens only periodically. Right now, membership is not open, but if you are interested and you want to know the next time that the membership is open, then you can get on our email list. Just go to lawfirmmarketingmastery.com/confidential to get that information. Okay, that's it for today. Hope you really enjoyed that. The plan is to really roll out more of these interviews in the future. I'm going to be reaching out to people that aren't just lawyers, but that are in all walks of life and really have some expertise in marketing to talk to them. Because the more that we can learn from them, the more that we can implement in our own practices, and the more money we can make, more people we can help, and the happier that we can be. So again, take care and have a great week.